The day I got an offer for my first job after college in management consulting, a good friend told me, "Girl, you're done. The hardest part is getting the job." That got me really excited. But I also heard this anxious voice speaking inside my head. That voice is my inner critic, who I call Nancy. And Nancy kept telling me, "Psh, Renata, I don't think you should be that excited. You have zero consulting skills." Nancy was right, but she calmed down once I got to work on that skill set. A couple years ago though, when I started a new relationship, I had a strangely similar experience. My friends were saying things like, "You're done. The hardest part is finding the right person." But Nancy did not like that at all. Renata, what do you know about relationships? Clearly, not much, because so far, 100% of them have failed. Ouch, Nancy, that hurt. But she was right. What did I know? And this time, I wasn't even sure what and how to learn. So I started thinking, am I the only one struggling with this? What do other people think about this? So I want to ask you, wherever you are right now, raise your hand if you think that love is a really important part of life. Don't be shy, no one can actually see you. Great. Now, raise your hand if you feel really well educated on how to love. If you don't have your hand up right now, I can guarantee that you're not alone. I also asked my amazing classmates in business school at Stanford, and every single person thought that love was a really important part of life. But not a single person felt educated on how to succeed. Which is interesting because in business school, we pride ourselves on being so educated and so strategic in everything we do, except for relationships. And let's think about that for a second. If I was looking for a new job, in the same way that we often look for a new relationship, I would probably just pull out my phone, swipe through a few photos, and if I saw something promising, like an attractive office only 2 miles away, then maybe I would think that that could be the one. But that would be really weird, because we invest so much time in our professional lives. We spend years building our knowledge, our skills, our network. That's a pretty solid foundation. But when it comes to relationships, which overwhelming research point as a top predictor of life satisfaction, health, and wealth, our foundation is more like a flimsy house of cards. We basically learn by watching others. We look at the couples around us, we watch what they do right and wrong, and we assume we know how to do it right. But that's like hoping to become a doctor by watching Grey's Anatomy. So instead of like building a solid foundation, we kind of just wait or swipe until we find the right person. No wonder we feel so unprepared. And that's exactly how I felt a couple years ago. I thought I already met the right person, but I still didn't know how to be the right person. And that felt really scary. So I started reading every single book and every piece of research that I could find about the science of relationships. And even though that became my favorite activity, I tried to hide it for a long time. I thought it was too personal, controversial, and frankly too embarrassing to discuss with anyone. But then one day, my amazing big brother, Rodrigo, called me and he asked, "Hey, is everything okay?" And I said, "Yeah? What's going on?" Well, as it turns out, I forgot that Rodrigo and I share the same account on Amazon, which sometimes gets awkward. And he was calling because he noticed a trend in my recent book orders. 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work. Your Brain on Love. Mating in Captivity. And many, many other relationship books. Now, at the time, Rodrigo was also in business school. So I told him, "Listen, we're both getting an MBA because it's valuable, but it's not always been valuable. When they created the MBA 100 years ago, most people thought it was crazy that business was being elevated to the same level of expertise as law and engineering. Now, it's the most popular graduate degree in the US. We finally see value in business education, and we have to do the same for relationships." Now, am I suggesting that we create a formal master's degree in love? No. But I am suggesting that we all start seeing ourselves as CEOs of our love lives. And that means worrying less about finding the right person and more about becoming the right person. We know from research that couples who thrive and couples who fail behave very differently. The patterns are so clear that Dr. John Gottman can predict whether a couple will stay together with up to 90% accuracy just by observing a few minutes of how they interact. Yes, people are different and there's no one formula, but there are patterns that we can all learn from. So I want to leave you with 3 takeaways that I think of as Love 101. These are just a few of many things that I wish we all learned in school and talked about more, much more. There are also great things to consider before you go on Tinder. Number 1, choose to see love as a skill. By far, the most important thing I've learned from this journey is that love is something far more demanding and far more rewarding than what we see in Hollywood. Love is not just an emotion, it's a skill that we can choose to learn, practice, and master over time. Like learning a foreign language. And as a non-native speaker myself, I can tell you that I still struggle with English. Sometimes a lot. And I also still struggle with my relationships. Sometimes a lot. But that's okay. Like any other skill, love is not easy and will never be perfect. But choosing to see it as a skill is the first step to getting better. Number 2, choose generosity over judgment. If you've been the parent of a child or a puppy, you know what it feels like to see really unpleasant behavior with generosity, not judgment. You understand that they are still growing up. But if our partner does something that we don't like, we get offended, we judge. They should be fully grown up by now. But as long as we are alive, we're all still growing up. On top of that, we know from research that on average, 2/3 of all relationship problems are actually not solvable, even in healthy couples. So the key is not hoping for less conflict, but focusing on practicing more generosity even during conflict. It's so easy to see the wonderful things about our partner, but the true love skill is seeing what's not so wonderful about them with generosity, not judgment. Number 3, choose to become an expert on your partner. I used to find it romantic to say things like, I know everything about my boyfriend. But I realized that it's even more romantic to think about how much more there is to discover. And that's because to have a great relationship, we need so much detailed knowledge about the other person, from what they want in their coffee to what they want in their legacy. And that's really hard to do. But it's possible if we take on the mindset of a curious expert who never stops learning. We know from neuroscience that the brains of couples who report to be madly in love after over 20 years can still light up in similar ways as couples who just recently met. Couples who stay in love are couples who stay curious. Every day, they commit to learning about each other, like an expert. They never assume they know everything. Plus, if you're always discovering a new side of your partner, then maybe the honeymoon can be more than just a phase. Now, the important part is not just understanding Love 101. It's committing to a lifelong practice. Sometimes that's really hard, but it's often through the difficult times that we get to test our beliefs and our resolve to them. And I experienced that recently when I ended a special long-term relationship, which was very difficult. But it gave me even more conviction about what I think is so important about learning to love. But Nancy did not agree. Renata, aren't you ashamed? You basically failed Love 101. And frankly, I did spend a few days listening to Nancy and to Ariana Grande's breakup anthem. But during my breakup breakdown, I had a breakthrough. Love 101 is about taking radical responsibility for learning the skills that make us better in any relationship. So breaking up was not like failing Love 101. It was actually another chance to practice it. And that's because we can always choose to see love as a skill, whether it's in the beginning, the middle, or the end of any relationship. We can always choose generosity over judgment, and not only when things are going well, but especially during the difficult times. And we can always choose to become an expert on the other person and use that expertise to better understand ourselves, because that's the one relationship that we all get to cultivate and to enjoy every single day of our lives. Like any other important skill that we learn in school, learning to love is our right. It's our responsibility. And it's an opportunity that we cannot afford to waste. Thank you.